I got to Hut 6 in Bletchley Park by a very devious route, which I've described in some detail in the book. I talk about the different ways in which I was working before I actually went into the park as a cryptographer. I went first, as most people did who were in intelligence, into field security work. My service training was signals interception. And when I went into the army, I went to the Royal Corps of Signals in Catterick, and from there I went on, since my Morse was good enough, to a course in the interception of messages, and we spent some time intercepting them. And I think I was probably rather unique in Bletchley Park in having that element in my military background. But Bletchley needed people who were not mathematicians. And history, my own background, was a very good way of approaching some of the problems that we had in code breaking. We had to understand the significance of a message sent by code to the person who sent it and the person who received it. Luftwaffe messages, Air Force messages, were the ones that were the easiest way in to the breaking of the code. And we got to the point where if we hadn't broken the day's code by about 9 a.m., then we felt something was wrong. The German who were sending messages sometimes made ridiculous mistakes in the way in which they approached the sending of their messages. And you sometimes get them actually giving away the basis for us to break a message by using a nonsense message. That was really good luck on our part and great folly on the part of the Germans. I'm not sure that it would have been as easy as it was to turn code breaking into a routine if the Germans had used their own machine more successfully. They did cause us problems when from time to time they changed it. They were sending fewer and fewer messages the more they retreated, and consequently with fewer messages and more changes of the system that they were using, our work became much more difficult. Gordon Welshman devised the system by which Bletchley Park was organised in huts, and he borrowed the word hut from the huts that the contractor was using before any cryptographers went to Bletchley at all. Gordon was a very remarkable organiser and deserves to be picked out, but there was only one real genius at Bletchley, and that was Alan Turing. And I had no doubt about Turing's eccentricities, but he was a genius, and he worked just as much with the post office research team as he did with the people at Bletchley Park. And therefore one of the things that I felt it necessary to do in my book was to discuss the role of the post office as well as of Bletchley Park in enabling us to break messages.
When it arrived, did it seem significant, or was it just another tool?
Oh no, it seemed very significant. Very. And I knew some of the people who were working on it who didn't find it at all easy, and who didn't find code breaking of that kind as fascinating as I found code breaking. And Colossus was really a real computerized assistant to breaking messages. We didn't need it for breaking Enigma, but to break some of the other codes, you did need to have a real computerized system. And I admired immensely the people who, at the end of the war, reconstructed Colossus, and particularly a man called Flowers, who in his own way was, I think, something, not quite of a genius, but something, a breakthrough man, I think. And you were talking about breaking codes. He broke through systems. The great thing about Bletchley Park to me was the teamwork on which it depended, and also the enormous part played by people who were not themselves code breakers, but were really serving to break the messages on the way by other means. They were scattered. And my book, I think, was the first book to really bring out the importance of the role of women at Bletchley Park. I believe that I am now the only surviving cryptographer. Therefore, the book has got elements in it which only a survivor could recall.
Is there an anecdote that you remember of a particularly significant moment when you were working in Hut 6?
Yes, the most interesting thing was right at the end of the war, when we all had different places where we were sitting in Hut 6. And it so happened that I was sitting at the place where the messages came through. And I heard a message which said, "The war is over." And that to me, from Germans, and that to me was the best message of all ever to hear.